Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone, this is Saud Madini from the Advisory Services in the Business Development Department. Thank you all for joining another November workshop. We're glad to be here with you. Before we start our workshop today, let's go through the safety moment with our colleague Turki Al-Milham.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope everybody is doing well. My name is Turki Al-Mulhim. I'm the safety unit head here in SIDF from Facility and Services Department. Safety is not just a priority, because priorities always shift and change. Safety is a value here in SIDF, and we value your safety very much. Therefore, I would like to discuss with you certain measures that we can take in case of an emergency, may Allah forbid. So we have the evacuation map. Of course, before I start with the evacuation map, it's very important to know our location. We are in CAFT Area 3, Building 3.04, second floor. We are currently located on the west side of the building. You can see it on the top left side of the map. You can see two arrows on the top map. One is indicated by the color blue, and one is indicated by the color green. The color blue is the primary exit. It will lead us to the assembly points in the mosque area. You can see the assembly point on the bottom map on the left side, top left. And we have a second exit indicated by the green color if there is a bottleneck, because there is a bottleneck on this side. So it's useful to make use of the other exits on this floor. You can see it on the top map indicated by the green color. We have an emergency number. It's 1999. This is an internal phone. You can contact this phone through your mobile device, but you have to contact SIDF main number. The last four digits should be 1999. Apart from that, we don't have a fire drill scheduled for today. So if there is a fire alarm activation, wait for the further instructions from the fire wardens. We have fire wardens on each floor. So pay attention to their instructions. Thank you all, and may Allah keep us safe and sound, inshallah. Shukran.
يعطيك العافية Turki. And now allow me to introduce our colleague from the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources, زميلنا مشاري الحرقان, to take us through Rawabet Program.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to the SIDF for hosting us. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the Rawabet program. So the agenda for today, we'll do a program introduction, our workflow, the added value to both factories and the companies that we work with, as well as our current partnerships, and finally how we assess our impact to the factories and the companies we work with. So who is the Rawabet program, or what is the Rawabet program? So we aim to market locally manufactured products by linking giga projects with local factories. So we begin by communicating with certain development companies at the PIF, Red Sea Project, NEOM, and so on and so forth. We then link them with certain local factories that can produce the products that they receive. So the program goals, as you can see at the bottom, are to market local factories, improve the local factories, as well as create alliances and purchase agreements. So why did the Rawabet program come to be? So these are some of the challenges we saw that were facing the market, and we wanted to, to target and challenge. So first of all, we have project tenders not reaching most factories, especially SMEs. Secondly, we have factory information. The giga project development companies do not have the proper data to assess the local manufacturing capabilities. And third, project requirements. The factories themselves do not know what it is that the development companies are requiring, from specifications or requirements and so on and so forth. So here we have our program workflow. It begins with the account manager, let's say in this example, myself. I would contact, let's say, the Red Sea Project or NEOM or whoever, and take from them their needs in the locally manufactured products. We begin to analyze the order details that they've provided us. What are the factories that can achieve their requirements, be it through capacity or specifications and so on. Next, we begin to sort and review the factory data, making sure that it is applicable to their needs. We then send the requested data to the project or the company, and then the linking process happens. We ensure that they have communicated with the factory, taken the necessary information from them, and then finally, we do our impact assessment, which we will go into further on in the presentation. So, what is the added value to the factories? First, we increase local factory participation. Bringing in and showing the development companies what our capabilities are increases the local factory participation. Furthermore, we increase the awareness of future demands for the development companies themselves. Secondly, through these two, we then create new lines of production. Once they know what specifications they need, what materials are required, these new production lines can be created. And then finally, increase production capacity. Going forward, the added value to companies and projects. So first of all, we increase the awareness of local manufacturers, as I said before, reducing risks. So localizing your supply chain. As we saw during COVID, international supply chains were very severely damaged during it. And through localizing a part of your supply chain, at the least, can help reduce these risks, saving time, especially in transport and freight costs, or freight time, as well as reducing costs for customs and freight and so on and so forth. And finally, after-sales service, having your supply chain locally available can help you to assess any issues that you have going forward. So these are some of the services that we've also provided, which are alternative materials. So one of our development companies were looking for carbon fiber, reinforced polymer, or plastic. And through our research, we found no company or no factory that can actually produce this material. But through our research and through actually working with the SIDF, we were able to find an appropriate alternative in glass fiber reinforced polymer, which are not fully replacing, but can do at least 80% of the task of carbon fiber. Secondly, we have volcanic ash, which similarly was requested by one of the development companies who were not able to find it locally, but we're able to find a appropriate and even environmentally friendly alternative in pozzolan cement. Going forward, these are some of the development companies that we have begun working with. And through the years, we've actually been expanding into not just the PIF companies, but as well as the companies that are owned 50% by the kingdom. So finally, here we have our impact assessment. How do we make sure that our work is actually affecting our factories in a positive way? So first, we ask all of our development companies to provide us a list of non-approved factories, the list of approved factories, and the contract values in the deals that have been made. With non-approved factories, we then turn them to internal initiatives in the ministry to help improve them, reach the specification requirements that are needed, and so on. And approved factories enter into the cycle once again to be marketed to other development companies. Once they see that they have been able to enter into the biddings of these larger companies, increases their, let's say, their their trust in the factory. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And this here, you can see the contact information for the Rawabet program, either by phone or by email. We can communicate with us, be it a factory, a company, or a project. we will be there to help you and to make sure that you increase your local supply chain. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
يعطيك العافية. Hello everyone again. So now we're going to move to the second part of our workshop today, where we will be talking about the advisory services at SIDF. We have 4 objectives of our workshop today. First is to introduce the advisory services offered by SIDF. We will then move and give you use cases, examples of each of the services we offer. We will also discuss how to apply to the advisory services, and finally we will end with a Q&A session. Just a bit of history. For the past 50 years, SIDF has been considered the main financial enabler for the entire ecosystem. However, back in 2021, certain non-financial products were released to the market. One of them is the advisory services. The main goal of the advisory services is to support small and medium enterprises to achieve sustainable growth, operational excellence, utilizing the fund's 50 years of experience in the technical studies as well as the marketing studies. Who are our target customers? We target small and medium enterprises as per Munshaat's definition. So by small enterprises, we mean 6 to 49 employees with an annual revenue between 3 to 40 million. And then the medium enterprises, we're talking about 50 to 249 employees with a revenue between 40 to 200 million. And of course, we support all the 4 sectors that SIDF supports, which are the industry sector, energy sector, mining sector, and finally, logistics sector. And as of now, we are still free of charge. We have 3 main services. So starting with the growth strategy is more of a revenue strategy where we focus on your revenue, how to optimize your top line, how to increase your top line, and so on. And some of the examples of the client challenges that we address through this service is improving customer concentration, tap into new distribution channels, expand into new regions, or even start exporting. If we move to the service in the middle, which is the Lean Manufacturing and Operational Efficiency Program, it's a service that tends to maximize business value and continuously improve and minimize the lean wastes within the system. We utilize diagnostics tools and techniques from the lean manufacturing philosophy. And some of the examples that we address, some of the challenges that we address rather through this service is a high level of lean waste, such as waiting, transportation, or defects, low machine capacities, or low operators' performance or variation in performance. Then if we move to the last service that we have, which is the cost optimization. And the main goal of this service, we zoom into the P&L and the income statements of different clients, deep dive into major cost buckets, and think of different solutions how to increase profitability by minimizing these cost buckets. And some of the examples of the challenges that we address through this service is high operating cost or low profit margins or high fixed cost. And now after we have a clearer image on our different advisory services, the approach we take is an agile approach where we engage with our clients from 4 to 5 weeks, depending on the complexity of the problem. And we go through 3 different phases. Phase number 1 is the status quo. This is where we conduct internal evaluation of the company, analyzing their data, analyzing their sales, their regional presence, and their organizational structure, including cost structures. If we move to the external evaluation, which happens in phase number 1, this is where we conduct extensive market sizing from a supply perspective, from a demand perspective, and we also look at factors such as the competitive landscape. Simultaneously, we move to the second phase, which is determining the improvement opportunity. Based on the challenges and the pain points we have from phase 1, we address them through different recommendations or solutions in phase 2. And finally, in the last phase, this is where, together with our clients, we detail the most impactful recommendations or improvement levers, what we call quick wins. We have two main outcomes of our engagements with the clients. So the first outcome is the diagnostics report or the status quo report. This is where we highlight to our clients the situation as is and where are the different weaknesses or pain points that they have. And the second main outcome of our engagements is the solution design report, and this is where we detail the recommendations together with our clients based on the identified challenges from phase 1. And now, after we have a better idea about the advisory services, we will go through 3 different examples, 1 example of each of our services. We will start with our first case study for today, and it will talk about the growth strategy in the healthcare sector, specifically for pharmaceuticals. So as I just mentioned, we start the engagement and we kick off the engagement by understanding the business challenges from the client. And then basically from there, we request data and we start analyzing the data. And this data could include financials, company sales, product portfolio. And then we move to the external assessment as well, which is where we study the market extensively from a supply perspective, from a demand perspective, and from a landscape perspective, from a competitive landscape perspective. Some of the specific data that we could also include during the diagnostics or the status quo phase, and since we're talking about pharmaceuticals here, we look at SFDA lists, we look at regulations and policies, we look at disease burden carried by the government, we look at the demand, and we also look at the cash conversion cycle. Some of the main insights that we got out of the status quo is that the CAGR, the compound annual growth rate of this sector, is around 4% in the kingdom, and the market size will reach to be 57.2 billion Saudi riyal by 2028. Of course, this implicates that there is an attractive growth opportunity, and we also notice that Saudi Arabia, in terms of MENA region, Saudi Arabia accounts for 27% of the pharmaceutical products. So we took an approach where we created evaluation matrices to target the specific therapeutic areas and products. We also considered tendering strategies, we considered government policies and regulations, and we also evaluated the product development life cycle to better suit our recommendations to the client needs. And of course, this is basically a snapshot of what we have by end of phase 2 that we explained. And in this page, we're simply highlighting, based on the challenges and the pain points of the client, we highlighted 8 different improvement levers to solve those challenges or those problems. What you see in the middle of the page, this is the priority matrix that we usually provide to each and every client. It has 2 dimensions. It has impact and ease of implementation. And the higher the impact and the higher the ease of implementation, which what we see in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner, this is what we call the quick wins, which is the quickest to implement with the highest impact. For the sake of time today, I will be talking about 2 of these levers. So first, we utilized the tunnel methodology where we applied 4 different filters on roughly 2,400 products. And the main idea is we had 2,400 products by filter number 1, and we ended up having only 127 products out of 2,400 products by filter number 4. And very quickly, basically, the first filtration was based on the targeted therapeutic areas that our client was interested in. The second filtration is statistical analysis, where we assess the feasibility. And then we move to the third filtration, where we study the market size for each of these products, the supply, the demand, the competitive landscape, and so on. And finally, together with the client, we aligned on certain scoring weights, and we considered 3 dimensions in this case. So we have positioning and targeting, we have public policy alignment, and finally we have commercial prospect. And each of these 3 dimensions is assigned a weight to help us decide with the client on the best suited option. So this is basically, this will showcase what I just explained, that we have 3 success dimensions over here. So we have the public policy and alignment, we have positioning and targeting, and we have the commercial prospect. In the public policy and alignment, we consider SFDA lists, rules and regulations. We consider the LCGPA policies. We think about early movers to the market, and we look at the priority objectives based on Vision 2030 in the kingdom. Then if we move to the positioning and targeting, we consider things such as product mix synergies. We considered the strategic therapy area that our client was targeting, and we look at the strategic fit overall. Then whatever products graduate from these 2, we move to the 3rd success dimension we have, which is the commercial prospect. And this is where we look at the business side of things. So we assess the market growth, including the CAGR for that specific drug. And then we also look at the competitive intensity. And based on the outcomes of both analysis, we move to the ease of market penetration. This is where we look at the competitive intensity, and accordingly we basically decide which product is more attractive in terms of penetration than the other. And by applying this, the potential market capture for our client was around 3%. That was one example of one of the levers that we detailed for our client. This is another example. And the main idea here is when we noticed that our client has unutilized capacity, we basically tried to analyze and understand what will it take for them to increase the capacity utilization of their production line by basically introducing a new drugs to be manufactured in-house. So what we basically did, we evaluated 3 different scenarios. So we have the base case without any changes. We have the modifying the existing capacity or the existing production line to produce the drug that we are recommending, or finally, we are adopting new manufacturing setup completely. Of course, we developed a financial model to basically estimate the revenue forecast, and then we did pros and cons for each of the 3 options. And then basically on the pros and cons and based on the external assessment insights that we discussed in the previous page, we basically calculated the capex and the risk and the payback period, as well as the return on investment for all 3 options. And as you can see in the graph in the bottom right-hand side, the option that we recommended to our client was to adopt a new manufacturing setup, since it has the shortest payback period with 5.1 years, and finally the highest return on investment of 25.1% return on investment. This was it for our first case study that talks about growth strategy, and now allow me to move to the second case study, where we will be showcasing our cost optimization service with a client in the F&B sector, specifically in the bottled water activities. So again, we start with the status quo assessment, where we zoom into the current state of the client and try to understand and conduct internal assessment, and then from there we move to the external assessment. And what's a little bit special about this service is that we start by an extensive P&L analysis and try to compare and conduct benchmark between the major cost buckets locally and internationally to see where our client falls. And some of the main insights that we got out of this was that our client, or the factory we were engaging with, they were paying 4 times higher price in terms of logistics and distribution, 4 times higher than the market average. And then based on that, and based on the extensive status quo analysis, again, this is a very similar view to what we just showed, and this is basically where we list the different levers of improvements for our clients, and then prioritize them based on impact and ease of implementation. And most of the time we detail the quick wins for our clients. In this case, what you see in the top left-hand corner. So today I'll be detailing with you one of these, which is basically reorganizing and restructuring the sales team, incentivizing them, and then the logistical team. So what we basically did, again, we created or we developed 3 different scenarios with pros and cons, benefits and risks on each based on the client need. And what we see here very quickly is it's either we studied the option of outsourcing the logistics fully to a 3PL company. We also studied the option of establishing partnerships and distributors with distributors, and finally using the internal logistics capabilities. And after the extensive analysis in the first phase of the project, we recommended to our client using the internal logistics because of 2 main points. Using internally your logistics fleet and team, this will provide the client with better control over the performance, and it will also help with optimizing or increasing the capabilities of the sales team, as well as it will allow for more accurate planning in terms of routes and deliveries. So some of the analyses that we conducted with our client is, the first one, we studied the client had more than 7 different branches, 8 different branches in Saudi Arabia. We studied that does it make sense to keep all 8 branches, or maybe we could merge some of the branches to reduce cost and without basically compromising revenues. And then in the second phase, we basically analyzed the routes in scheduling those deliveries to optimize logistics cost and to see which branches have better logistical cost and if there are any lessons that we could apply somewhere else. And then finally, along with the other levels, we provided our client with a work plan or an improvement roadmap. And this is where we basically split it into first priority, or what we call short term, and then we have the medium term or the longer priority. In this case, the short priority was from 6 months to 1 year, and this is where we basically recommended our client to reconsider the incentive structure for the sales team to motivate them and incentivize them to sell more. Strengthening the capabilities of the sales team through different trainings, and finally understanding the highest performing routes and branches, and accordingly take decisions. If we look at the second priority, which takes from 1 to 2 years, this is where we're recommending to our clients to basically merge the branches that are less than 250 kilometers from each other, because they can serve the same geographical area. This is it for our second case study for today, and now we will move to the third and last case study we have for today, which is an example of the lean manufacturing and operational efficiency service. We were helping a client in the building material sector, specifically in the roll-up doors activity. What's special about this service that it's a bit operational, unlike the other two. So in here, this is a summary view of the findings of the diagnostics phase or the status quo phase. And this is a very famous waterfall chart. We call it performance losses chart. And basically what we're trying to convey is the potential capacity for our client was to produce 60 doors per day, but due to different reasons, the actual capacity, the client was producing 30 doors a day. So technically the client was working up to 50% utilization or capacity utilization. Now, when we zoomed into these three different drivers, we discovered that performance management was not applied at all, and nobody is tracking performance, and nobody knows how to track performance or how to achieve targets. Then we looked at shop floor organization, and this is where we looked at material flow, organization of the shop floor, different practices for different operators, and how do they know what to do next. And finally, we looked at the planning and standardization, and this is basically where we linked the business and the operations together to try and understand how does the business affect operation, how is the flow of information, and how does the shop floor plan based on the business plan. So based on that, we discovered that within the process of manufacturing or within the process maps, the client had high level of lean wastes. So in this page, what you see in the left-hand side is we're trying to convey the concept that your lead time as well as your cost will significantly improve by reducing the non-value adding time, which are the red boxes in this case, and only focus on the value adding activities, or what we call conversion steps. And this is what your client is paying money for. And basically your cost will reduce, your lead time will reduce, and you'll be able to produce more in lesser time. And then from there, to emphasize the mindset of continuous improvement, we showcase the clients an example of each of the 8 different lean ways that we observed during the diagnostics phase. And very quickly, if I want to give an example in terms of rework, we saw that defective parts are happening downstreams because there are no quality gates and nobody is checking what good quality is. If we look at waiting, we witness significant amount of time wasted in waiting, whether for tools, whether for raw materials, or simply for instructions regarding what to do next. So from there, we wanted to assess the capability of their manufacturing process. And we started that by calculating something called takt time. And simply takt time is the heartbeat of a shop floor, meaning every X amount of minutes you need to produce 1 unit. We assessed the conversion steps or the value adding time, and as we can see, all of the numbers are below 9 minutes takt time. So this was the first indication that the process is capable but filled with lean waste. Then when we moved to the bottleneck process, as you can see, it took 16 minutes, whereas the takt time is 9 minutes. So any process above 9 minutes is basically not good or alarming in this case. Then from there, we basically estimated the future state. What if the client wanted to produce 50 doors, and then what if the client wanted to produce 100 doors? And this proved our thesis that the process is capable, because none of the 2 graphs you see in the right-hand side is exceeding the takt time. So if the client wanted to go for 50 doors, they're still behind the 9 minutes, under the 9 minutes. Similarly, the 100 doors, they're still under the 4.5 minutes. And the main idea was to prove to the client that your process is capable, however, it's filled with lean wastes. One of the ways to address lean waste, as we saw in the first page, is performance management. And performance management is a very simple system that helps in creating transparency and drives problem solving in a manufacturing setup. And some of the questions based on the best industry practices it talks about visibility, talks about, does the shop floor know where they're going? What's the difference between actual and targets? Where are the targets coming from? What do we do next? What do we do if there is a problem? And so on. So based on that, we provided the client with an illustrative example. And this is where we're just explaining the concept of performance management, where you continuously compare your targets with actuals, and it's more of a visual tool to make things just simpler to understand or easier to understand. From this view, automatically, by filling it, you're collecting data regarding your production issues. And basically, the recommendation here is to always focus on the top 2 or top 3 issues, because you will continuously find new issues coming up. And again, it provides better visibility. It connects operations with the business much better. And finally, it drives problem solving, which is the main goal of Lean, of having that mindset of continuously improving. And only by adopting this simple solution with other solutions, we achieved a revenue uplift of 10%, where the client went from around 30 doors per day to 50, and they also reached the 60 doors per day by implementing the different solutions. What we witnessed was that the client went from 36 to 50 doors. This is 14 extra doors per day, and this means 39% increase in productivity. Thank you all for listening. Yatikum al-afia for joining, and we will pause right here and happy to take any questions or comments.
السلام عليكم، الله يعطيكم العافية جميعا. أنا الحقيقة عندي سؤالين. السؤال الأول بخصوص منصة مبادرة روابط الزملاء في الوزارة. سؤالي يبدو لي من العرض الحقيقة أنه بديتوا في قطاع الماتيريال. هل الطريقة هذه ستمتد إلى قطاعات صناعية أخرى؟ إيش هي القطاعات؟ وكذلك وش آلية، هل فقط روابط هي بين البائع والمشتري أو في انفولمنت للإيكو سيستم ككل؟ هل في انفولمنت للجهات الحكومية الأخرى؟
نعم. الحين نحن في برنامج روابط we are working on expanding البرنامج going forward. At the beginning تركيزنا كان في ال building materials خصيصا، وكل ما نمشي احنا نبدأ نتوسع. من قريب جانا طلب من تقريبا خلينا نقول reverse order، بدال ما يجي من البي اي اف او من احد الشركات الكبرى كانت تجي من المصنع نفسه يبي يوطن سلاسل الامداد عنده، فكان يدور هو على مواد كيميائيه specifically في البتروكيميكال سيكتورز. فهنا بدينا احنا نتوسع حبه حبه في بعض الشركات او بعض المشاريع عندهم حاجه للمواد الغذائيه او اكواب او ما غيرها، فكل ما مشينا نشوف الاحتياج اللي في السوق ونبدا نتوسع ونكبر باذن الله.
سؤال آخر للزملاء في الخدمات الاستشارية، هل في آلية معينة للتقديم على مثل هالخدمات؟ وكذلك في حال تقديم الخدمة هل في فيدباك الناس اللي قدموا خدمة بحيث أنها تقيس الأثر أو التحسين اللي صار بعد التقييم سواء في الإفشنسي أو في السيلز أو في الكوست؟ وهل هذا يؤخذ في الاعتبار؟ هل العلاقة هل يكون فيه فولو أب مع العملاء أو تنتهي العلاقة فقط بتقديم الخدمة الاستشارية؟ شكرا.
يعطيك العافية، سؤال جميل. في البداية بالنسبة لآلية التقديم هنا في شقين. طبعا عندنا الزملاء في علاقات الائتمان، الزملاء اللي يكونوا عارفين اللي يكون عندهم اطلاع على المصانع أو المصانع المتعثرة. فواحد من الديماند شانلز let's say تجينا internal referrals، زملائنا في إدارة الدراسات أو علاقات الائتمان. وبرضو من ورشات العمل الخارجية لما بيسكلي وي جو مع منشآت let's say، وبرضو نفس الشيء يجينا منهم انفلو بحيث انه في بيننا وبينهم منصة طموح. هذا كله غير عن في موقع SIDF في الموقع الرسمي للصندوق تحت خدمات المستثمرين. اي احد سواء عملاء صندوق او ما هم عملاء صندوق يقدروا يقدموا على الخدمات الاستشارية على طول. احنا يجينا نوتيفيكيشن ندخلهم معانا في الفلتريشن بروسيس ونبدأ نشتغل معاهم عادي جدا، او بكل بساطة باي سندنج ان ايميل. الايميل هذا ايميل موحد، افراد الفريق كلهم بيسكلي عندهم اكسس، بحيث انه نقدر دائما وباستمرار ندخل عملاء سواء من عملاء الصندوق او من غير عملاء الصندوق، خلينا نقول ملاك مصانع معانا في الادفايزري سيرفيسز. فمن ناحيه آلية التقديم it's very flexible، ما فيها limitations مرة كثير سواء داخليا أو خارجيا. بالنسبة للجزء الثاني من السؤال اللي هو قياس الأثر، إحنا بعد انتهاء كل مشروع نرسل للعميل client feedback form، نسأله مجموعة من الأسئلة، وبناء على رأي العميل في جودة الخدمة، في طول الخدمة، في الفريق، في الامباكت حق السولوشن، طبعا يؤخذ بعين الاعتبار. ولو بعطيك اكزامبل سابق، احنا الخدمة الثالثة اللي واحدة من الخدمات اللي شرحناها خلق النيد لها بسبب انه احنا دائما ناخذ فيدباك من العملاء ونحاول we tailor our offerings بناء على what the ecosystem really needs، بناء على احتياجات العملاء على ملاك المصانع.
تفضل الأستاذ.
شكرا، يعطيك العافية. يعطيكم العافية جميعا. سؤال للأستاذ مشاري بخصوص منصة أو مبادرة روابط، هل هي تعتمد على بلاتفورم، هل لها ريفرنس، ولا تعتمد على الكوردينيشن من البورتفوليو مانجر؟
حاليا الفوكس تقريبا على البورتفوليو مانجر، بس إن شاء الله بإذن الله في المراحل القادمة بيكون في تركيز على تقريبا أتمتة بعض الأمور، لأن هي في الأخير الكور البرنامج الروابط هو داتا شيرنج وداتا افيلابيلتي، ان الواحد يكون مطلع على احتياجات السوق والماركت ايش متوفر فيه. فلا باذن الله في المراحل القادمه بيكون في تركيز اكثر على منصه وبلاتفورم للبرنامج باذن الله.
طيب إذا حبينا نقارنها بس SAP أرابيا وإندي المدن what is its position؟
تقريبا هو الان حاليا it's more شلون اقول لك involved in the process. ندخل مع المشاريع وندخل مع المصانع بشكل دقيق، وحتى إلى درجة أنه فيها إعادة تأهيل للمصنع. إذا صار حدث أن المصنع ما يقدر يدخل في المشاريع الكبرى doesn't have the qualifications the specifications، هنا يكون في communication بين المصنع وبين البرنامج كيف تقدر توصل للمرحلة اللي أنت تحتاجها. فمو هو بس انه عرض او الداتا انفورميشن وبس، في also development for the factories.
ممتاز، يعطيك العافية، شكرا لك.
الله يعافيك، شكرا لك.
طيب الله يعطيكم العافية جميعا، شكرا على حضوركم وعلى وقتكم. وقبل الختام ندعو نائب الرئيس التنفيذي المهندس أحمد البقعاوي لتكريم الأستاذ مشاري الحرقان.